The rand made some strong gains today against a weakened US dollar. The local all share down about 0.75% or 0.2% at close in the afternoon. Global markets were mixed as well as investors continued their caution in the wake of that Silicon Valley Bank collapse in the US last week. Let's get more from Robert Towell from Sasfin. Rob, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Lots of company news, but let's first get to check in with the broader market. Shares down quite extensively, steeply today, both locally and globally. Those banking troubles in the US not helping. So it wasn't a great few sessions for equities at all recently. Where's the caution coming from?
I think obviously the bank issues in the United States have caused a lot of concern initially. I see that the US markets at the moment have opened up very strongly today, but that contagion in the banking side in the US was an issue over the weekend, and that caused a sell-off recently. I think obviously in South Africa, load shedding, you're starting to see it come through multiple different sets of earnings now, and you're starting to see the progression of load shedding over a long period of time. You know, in the past we've had load shedding for a month or two, then it's abated, then again. But now we've had consistent load shedding at very high stages, which is now coming through earnings, and you're starting to see the real impact, you know, if you get this extended load shedding coming through in South African companies' numbers.
Now, some company news. I mean, Transaction Capital, these are the guys that own We Buy Cars and SA Taxi. Again, share price crash, 40% down today. I mean, taxi owners are struggling to repay loans. You know, much has changed after COVID, and you're going to give me some context about the broader context of what's happening here with Transaction Capital.
So there's a few things with Transaction Capital. Their growth engine, which is We Buy Cars, which is the second-hand car business, has been a very, very big growth engine, and has been growing at very extensive rates. And that's slowed down quite considerably, and they're going to have earnings down just less than 20%. They haven't given in the trading update the exact number, but not more than 20% down. So that growth engine is now slowed on the We Buy Cars side, which is a big part of their business. And the second part is SA Taxi. Transaction Capital is expecting the commutership to continue and come back to pre-COVID levels, and it just hasn't done that. So they saw some uptick after COVID in the use of taxis, but the amount of trips that are happening, the amount of people using taxis hasn't recovered, and it's not at levels that they thought it would be. And they say now there's an actual structural change to the South African taxi business. So the taxis have got a few headwinds as well. They've got higher fuel prices, which are coming through. They don't have as many passengers on their vehicles. And thirdly, because of load shedding, they don't get as many trips done because of all of the traffic. So they've got three big hampers and headwinds into their businesses, and those three issues are making it less profitable for them to buy a taxi, and therefore the non-performing loans in Transaction Capital are increasing. So they've had three, you know, big headwinds in that business, and you saw their numbers quite substantially down in their trading update.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty significant, just given the fact that we're down at the lower base here on the real economy on the ground, and it reflects, it's a bellwether, if you like, of what's happening down there. Let's get to another crash today, MultiChoice, and there's a similar theme here behind that share price crash, isn't it?
Yeah, so again, load shedding, they've said, has brought down their numbers and the amount of people using DSTV. So obviously in South Africa, if you've got DSTV and you've got no power, you have no TV, pushes people to the streaming services instead. And some of the streaming is actually through the decoder. If you've got a Showmax, you can use your decoder, and therefore you can lose that possibility of streaming through there as well. And as people stop to use the DSTV, they're just not paying those DST monthly payments and moving on to a streaming platform, whether it's a Netflix, possibly if they're lucky, it'll be a Showmax. So they're starting to see load shedding impact their business locally as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to leave it there. Well, thanks very much for those insights, Robert Towell from Sasfin there.